All right, so let's get started. Good morning. Welcome to Trailhead DX 2018. My name is Ruben Rivera, and I am one of the senior engineering managers at Team Trailhead. So before we get going, just a quick note that if you're making any purchasing decisions today, to ensure that you're basing that off of products and services that are currently available. All right, so moving forward. OK, so the short story of Trailhead. This story is all about how we build Trailhead on the Heroku platform, how we scale Trailhead, where we've been, where we're going. And all right, so do we have any of you earned any badges? Do we have any Rangers in the crowd? Awesome. All right, so if you don't know, Trailhead began as a side project, a very small project back in 2014. Back then, we launched with 11 badges. Fast forward to 2018, and we have over 334 badges available for you guys to learn all the great things about Salesforce. It's actually growing because we just released some content this week as well. And this is where you can see some of the real scale. In 2015, our Trailblazers, our learners, earned around 300,000 badges. Fast forward to today, and you guys have earned over 6 million badges. It's around 6,200,000, but it just keeps growing. That is outstanding. All right, so what is Heroku? We get that question a lot. What is Heroku? What can Heroku do for me? What can I do with Heroku? So this is what Heroku has to say. Heroku is the best platform for building with modern architectures, innovating quickly, and scaling precisely to meet demand. So that's great, but what does that mean? Well, that means that you can build and deploy applications on the Heroku platform on any of these great languages. So we built Trailhead on Ruby and Node, but you can build on Java, PHP, Scala, Clojure, Go. And these are fully managed container, fully managed services. So Heroku makes it really easy because they actually so if there's a Ruby upgrade, they update that for you. So there's minimal setup that you have to do on your end. So your engineers can actually focus on building new features, on improving performance of your application. All right, so Heroku makes it super easy to deploy. So here I have an example of an application I'm building to find parking spaces in the Bay Area, because everybody knows that's super easy. So I've pushed my code. Heroku notices that it's a Rails app. It fires up the containers for me. I don't have to call anybody to set up any servers. I don't have to do any network routing, no load balancing, all those things that get in the way of deploying an application. So I've gone from idea to application in under an hour. All right, so Heroku is also a database as a service, fully managed databases in the cloud, backed up, secured, ready for you to build applications. So at Trailhead, we use Postgres as our database. We use Redis as our key value store, and then Kafka as a data streaming service. And again, the great thing about this is that you don't have to build your own database. You don't have to maintain it. Heroku does that for us. So if there's an upgrade that comes out for Postgres, Heroku will take care of that. There's some setup that you will have to do on your end to get your app back up and running, but it's minimal in comparison to having to build your infrastructure from scratch. All right, so another thing we use that's great about Heroku is Heroku Connect. So with Heroku Connect, you can go from your database to your Salesforce organization, and from Salesforce back to your database. So for example, I could fire up an app to collect leads here at Trailhead DX, and that data is going to go to my database, sync over to my Salesforce organization, and I could have a sales team anywhere in the world, let's say Barcelona or London, and they could start interacting with those leads in real time. All right, so I'm going to focus on 3 ways that we use Heroku here at Trailhead: trust, scale, and release. So let's dive into trust first, because trust is our #1 value here at Salesforce. All right, so we want to ensure that we're making everything secure for our learners, for our Trailblazers. And we can do that with private spaces. With private spaces, we have a network boundary that creates a private network for us. So we have control over who can access our applications, who can access our database. We can control how much access they have to it. And this is great because Heroku does pretty much all the heavy lifting for us. So we can connect to other systems with stable outbound IPs. And we can also keep our apps fast with dedicated runtime. And we do not accept connections from outside of our network. So this is great. Another thing we have to ensure is that we're surfacing and addressing issues quickly. So how do we do that? All right, so we have 3 ways to monitor our app's behavior. So we have direct integration with New Relic. Each of our apps has direct integration with New Relic, and we use that to monitor application behavior. So things like memory usage, disk usage, how many transactions per minute. So if any errors come up, we get an alert via PagerDuty. So we get a Slack notification, we get a push notification on PagerDuty, or our on-call engineers get a call so that we can jump on these issues and fix them as quickly as possible. So we also use Librato, and Librato is an add-on, and it's super easy to set up. It's just point and click. There's nothing to set up, nothing to configure. You just point and click, and Librato fires up, and it gives you great information about your database health. And we also send log drains to Sumo Logic so that we can get great analytics reporting, things about performance. If there's any performance degradation, we will get an alert, and we can have an engineer looking at that as quickly as possible. All right, so let's talk a little bit about scaling. How do we grow Trailhead? How do we make Trailhead go faster? OK, so first off, when you're choosing your technology, there's a couple of trade-offs. So you have to decide, do I have the resources to build my own infrastructure? Do I have the resources to build my own database and maintain it? With Amazon Web Services, you can do all these things. And Amazon Web Services is amazing. But you need a team of engineers to do this. You need someone that's dedicated to maintaining and upgrading your database. So with Heroku, we don't have to worry about these things as much. We can focus on delivering great features. So I like to think of Heroku as a carpenter, whereas AWS is a tool shed. So with AWS, again, you can build pretty much anything you want, but you need someone that knows how to use those tools. So with Heroku, it basically acts like our carpenter. It'll choose the best tools for us so that our engineering team can continue improving our application. And this is fantastic. All right, so this is a story from one of our director engineering, Trailhead. A couple of years ago, he used to work at this other company that maintained their own data center. And one day, there was a forest fire very close to their facility. Smoke started creeping up into their facility. They get a call. They find out the situation. They're freaking out. They're like, is our data going to go up in smokes? Do we want to worry about that? No, we don't. So we decided to go with Heroku. All right, so internally, our team, we have a motto, and it's to keep Trailhead weird. We like to keep things fun while we work. So we say we like to keep Trailhead weird. But when it comes to our technology, we like to keep things a little bit on the boring side. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that we don't necessarily want to go for the newest, untested, unproven technology out there. And I know as an engineer, there is great satisfaction in building things with the newest technology out there. But you have to make a decision. Again, it's a trade-off. Do you want to build with the newest technology, with the newest and unproven technology? Or do you want to go with something that has a community, that's stable, that has been proven? All right, so another great thing about Heroku is that we can scale when we need it. So with Heroku, you can actually scale vertically by getting more powerful dynos, more computing power. Or you can scale horizontally by adding more numbers of dynos. And this is fantastic because we actually had an event about a month and a half ago, a wildly successful event in India, where we had about 100,000 students go in at once, sign up for Trailhead, start earning badges, start earning points. And we realized quickly that we needed to scale. And we needed to scale right there. And we were able to do this with Heroku. We were actually able to get bigger dynos. We were able to update our Redis. And the greatest thing about this is that there was zero downtime. We were able to do this all live as our Trailblazers were still using Trailhead. And another thing you can do is you can actually scale back. So let's say that you have your engineers working on performance. You take a look at your performance, and you're like, well, great. We don't actually need all this computing power. So you can scale back as you need. And Heroku makes it super easy to do this. All right, so another great thing we use is database followers. So we use database followers to offload database reads from our master database. And we do this because we don't want to add extra strain to our master database. So we use database followers, which are real-time replicas of our master database. And we use this in turn to power our API, which we use to power Trailhead Tracker, which is a package that you can install in your Salesforce org to report on usage. So if you want to see how many badges, how many points a particular user has, you can do it with Trailhead Tracker. Another thing we use with Heroku is data clips. And data clips are great because people in your organization want to report on progress, right? But you don't want to give them access to your database. That could be dangerous. You could have someone run a bad query, and that could wreak havoc in production. So we use data clips instead. And data clips allow us to run ad hoc single queries to report on things like who earned the millionth badge. And these can be exported into XML, Excel, CSV, and JSON formats so that other people on your team can share progress with other departments. All right, so let's talk a little bit about releasing. How do we get new features out there? How do we keep improving Trailhead? So we use Heroku pipelines. Heroku pipelines are amazing. We love Heroku pipelines. So we use review apps, auto deploys, GitHub integration, and CI integration. So let's take a little look here at our pipeline. So Cody is going to help us understand our pipeline a little bit better. So by default, you get 3 stages. We decided to go with 4. You can have as many as you want for free with Heroku, but we like 4. So our first stage is review. So review apps are fantastic because it allows you to review code before it gets merged into the next stage. So we can have our developers, our QA team, our product managers start testing on a review app, which is basically like a short-lived environment that you can use to validate whether the code is ready to be merged onto the next stage. So once the pull request gets approved, once it gets reviewed, the developer merges it. We have auto deploy onto our next stage, which is develop. And that also triggers our CI. So we have tests running at all times. And we also have webhooks that trigger our automated regression test suite. So here's another example where we have pull request number 2. It's ready to be merged. Same process. It gets merged, auto-deployed to our next stage, which is develop. And then we see that another PR just popped up, PR number 3. It's not ready yet. It's going to go through the review process. All right, so at the end of our 2-week sprint, we take the code from develop, and we create a release branch. And this is what we're going to push to production. Again, the release branch gets auto-deployed. Once the CI passes, once the regression test pass, it goes on to staging. And at this point, the release is ready. And deploying to production with Heroku is as easy as clicking on the promote button. So at that point, we click promote. Heroku takes the dynos that are on staging, copies them over to production, takes down the dynos in production, takes down the old ones, and replaces them with the new ones. Using this process, our deploys take seconds. And this is fantastic. All right, so that's it. That's how we use Heroku at Trailhead. If you want to learn more about Heroku, we actually have a couple of modules and quick starts on Trailhead that you can check out on your own time. So thank you very much. Have a great Trailhead DX, and I think we may have time for questions. All right.